Hello everyone. Today we will see how to model an apartment. The interior of a house of any room from a plan. We will see the whole process that will achieve the result on the right of the screen. It is possible to change the display style to give an artistic side. Here are some examples that are very different from each other. I will not explain today how to proceed, but I will create a new specific tutorial on the subject. So remember to subscribe and activate the bell to be notified as soon as it is released. I will also add the link in the description. Thanks to the layers, or rather the tags for those who work with the latest versions of SketchUp, you will be able to make what you want appear. Like, for example here. Remove the terrace or simply add the rating. So the rating seems rough, but if we zoom in, it becomes smaller. We can also show the direction of the openings, for example. In short, you understand, it will be up to you to determine the layers, the tags, which will be useful to you. We will be able to start modeling our apartment from our original plan. We start with a clean document. The first thing to do is to configure the document units. To do this, click here on Model Information. We go to Units. Here you see M in millimeter, so I'm going to change to centimeter. Precision. I'm going to put one number after the decimal point because you will notice that on the plan, I have numbers after the decimal point. The anchor, I'm going to leave it active, however. I'm going to add 0.1 cm. Be careful, it is a comma that must be put, not a period, and I close. Now, I'm going to import my plan. To do this, I go to File, Import. Here be careful, we are in the SketchUp SKP files. So I have to go to PNG, because my image is a PNG. The apartment is here. Double-click. I come to lay down my plan from the beginning. It doesn't matter what the distance is, it'll resize it later. The first thing to do now is to check if our plane is horizontal. That is to say if the edges are parallel to my red-green axis. So for this, I'm going to draw a line. Right here in the corner, I zoom in quite a bit to be in a pretty good position until the end. So while I'm at it, I put myself on the same length as my wall. And there, you see, I am not parallel at all, so I am still going to line up here. And then, I will have to rotate my plane and my line at the same time. So I select my line. It is not very visible. So what I am going to do, I have two solutions for this. The first is to switch to transparency. There you can clearly see my line. Or what I can do is change its color. For this, we must go in Style. Here, we click on the small house to go to the model. We go to Addition. And there, I select the first square here for the edges. And there I change its color. I'm going to give it a green instead, because the green color will stand out well. Avoid blue, because it is the color of edge selection. We could get confused. I validate. You see that my line is much more visible, and if I switch to transparency, it's not bad too. To straighten my plane, I will select my line. I hold down Shift, I select the plane at the same time. This will allow me to rotate both at once. I type Q, the rotate tool. I click from this point to the end of my line that I have drawn. I go there, I click. And this time I turn to orient myself along the red axis. Here it is written on the red axis. I click. This time, my line is parallel to my red and green axis. Now, we will see how to resize the plane so that my line is the right size. If you don't need any particular dimensions, you can finish the perimeter simply by hand with the line tool. But it's important for a plan to have it in the right dimensions. I take the meter tool, which is here. I click on the first end of the line. I move to the other end. And there, I'm going to type 992. I validate with Enter. He asks me if I want to resize the model. Of course, I say yes. Why 992? This is simply the length of my room. It's 976 plus 16. I cannot check with the dimension tool that my line here actually measures 992 cm. I forgot to tell you, of course, that you can download the working file that I put in the description. This way, you can draw at the same time as me on this plan to practice, as well as the furniture. I will upload it for you. I'm going to continue the outline of the apartment. I take the line, I put it on the end, I position myself along the green axis. Above all, I don't click, and here I'm going to type in the lane 425.3, and so I continue the outline at 407.8. I validate by input each time. Here, this length is not directly there. I had to calculate. I find myself at 629.7 and I confirm. Here, 613.2. On the other hand, for the left side here, there is no dimension for the height, and here, we're going to do it as close to the plan as possible. To be as precise as possible, I will zoom in heavily on the area. I'm starting here again from my end. Tension here, because you can see it very well. I have a thickness of 8 centimeters of insulation. You can see it here. I put myself roughly there, I click. And so I make the outline. There, I try to align myself roughly with this partition there. Here, same principle. I have insulation. I'm going to go over because I am going to have to start from the bottom to make sure I am properly aligned. I'm overtaking. I'm going to erase my 2 lines. The perimeter is finished for now. You have to be careful because there is a dimension that goes from this edge to this one, so I am going to go transparent. This is the sum of all these links. I check. I will adjust it if it is not the right dimensions. I'm at 487.2. I should have 484. To correct that, I'm going to select my edge here. I take the Move tool. I move to the right. I click and type 3.2. This time, we have 484. On the other hand, we see here that the contour is not regular. We will modify this once we have made the offset for our insulation. It's not a big deal. We'll come back to it later. We don't know if the face here is selected or not. I have to remove the transparency. It's not very practical. I'm already deleting the coast. I go back to transparency. I'm also going to change the color of my faces. I'm going back in style. This time, not in edges, but in face parameters. I give it a rather orange color when it's upside down because there you see that it hasn't changed anything, which means that my face is certainly upside down. So the color of the back, I'm going to put it more in red. I validate. There we can clearly see that it is red. I right-click on it. I reverse the faces. It turned orange. That is to say that this time it is well oriented. Now, we will make the offset to give the thickness of the master walls. I press F on the keyboard. I click once here on the face. I move outside my drawing anywhere. I type 20 and I validate with Enter. Attention, because here there are 2 ribs, here and here, which are at 18. I'm going to select this line there. Move to the left, type 2 centimeters and confirm. I do the same thing here. I select, move left, 2 and validate. Here we have realized the thickness of our walls here. We will now create the offset of our insulation. To do this, I will first select the edges that I want to offset with the eraser. This is a technique that I developed some time ago. I put the sheet at the top, or the link in the description. I cross the lines like this. Spacebar and I release the mouse. This allowed me to select my 3 edges. I take the F tool, shift, inward. The insulation is 16, so I type 16 and validate by input. Same principle for elevator insulation. I take the eraser, I select my 3 edges, F, from there to there. I type 8 and confirm. I will now be able to correct the insulation offset. I select these 3 traits. I'm going to move them up. I don't know it's necessary down there. We'll leave it like that. It's not a big deal. You understand the principle well. We will now trace our openings in our walls and partitions. Here, for example, for the French window, I don't have any particular measurement. On the other hand, if you have a distance from this wall, you can very well draw a line which starts from this point, and you enter the correct length. There are 117. I type 150, for example. You see, my line is at 150. If I type 117, it returns to its place. For what? Because now if I take the rectangle tool, I'll go over here to the end that I just traced, and I'll trace over here to the second end because you'll have done the same thing the other way around. Then I take the eraser. I delete my 3 edges. Same principle. Here I will do it without quotation. You could have done the same thing if you had precise values. I will trace the other openings. that the openings have been traced. I forgot to do the central wall. We're going to trace it now. That's not a big deal. Rectangle. We're going to align ourselves on this point. This way I have the dotted line that connects me from this point, and I'm going to go up here because they put a door, but at a bit of an odd angle. I prefer to finish here. We will now take advantage of this to create our layers. You will see it will help us quite a bit later, and it will also allow me to explain to you what will happen when we push the walls. Start with the first layer, which I will call outline. I add the other layers and come back. There you go. I have just finished creating my layers of my tag. Of course, you can configure whatever you want. Besides, for those who are interested in how to use layers tags, I have 2 tutorials on the subject. You can find the first one in the sheet here, and the links are in the description. I'm going to start by hiding the plan. Nothing happens because I didn't assign it to the correct layer. For this, I will select my layer. There I go to plan. This time it is hidden. If I check it, it reappears. Why am I doing this? Because I'm going to show you what's going to happen when I push here. Here, double click for my insulation. If I go back, I see there are holes. And that's not very practical. In SketchUp, I cancel. To avoid this, you have to press Ctrl once. There is a little extra next to it. In fact, it will add material. I type 250. I validate to give the height. I double click here. I press Ctrl. Don't forget. Double click. This time I no longer have a hole. I do the same everywhere now. See, Ctrl, double click each time. I notice that the faces here are upside down. It's not serious. I select them like this from left to right. And I reverse them all. Is still better for working. On the plan that I am proposing to you, there are only French windows. So I'm going to show you how to integrate an opening for a class window. I take the meter tool, or T as a keyboard shortcut. I click on the bottom edge. Then I move upwards. There I am at 50.6. I click. If I want the bottom of my window to be at 80, I will type 80. I confirm. This positioned my guideline 80 centimeters from this edge. I do the same on the right or on the left. It depends on the dimension of my window. There I put it at 200. I validate. We take the rectangle tool. We trace our opening. We give it its dimension 200.80, for example. I take the push-pull tool. I push to the edge that belongs to the backside to make sure I have a hole. There you go, my opening is complete. I take the eraser, I delete my 2 guidelines. Or I could have simply gone to edit. Deleted the guides. However, be careful, this will delete the guides on the entire document. Then I select the set. I'm going to create one group. I'm going to put this group in the wall plus insulation. I uncheck wall and insulation. Everything disappears. Now I need to close the openings above my windows and my front door. Double click to open the group. And there I am going to draw a rectangle from there to this edge. And there, little tip. I have 50.5 in height and I need 20 cm. I only need to type 20. I don't need to type 34 and I confirm. My rectangle is already determined by being on this edge, so I only have the height to give. I do the same thing here. I go anywhere. I type 20 and I validate. I do this on all openings. For the front door, I will put 30 because they are a little lower. All I have to do now is push and pull, push from here to here. Then I realize that I forgot to double click. It doesn't matter. I reverse the side first. I push with Ctrl from here to here. And I start again. I do the same for the other openings. There I've finished all my openings. Now I'm going to erase the unnecessary edges. We can of course go transparent to avoid turning in all directions and delete the edges here, for example, which would be inside here or here. we will be able to trace the partitions and technical dots. I make my plan reappear. I go back to transparency. I'd start here. These two partitions, I take rectangle. I'm leaving here. The partition is 7 mm. I type 358, 7 and confirm. The second partition, I have to be aligned here, so I put myself on the end, like that. When I shift, there is the green dotted line, you can see it very well. So, I'm going down. I click here. Like earlier, I'm not going to type 243.7. I just type 7 and confirm. It just changes the width. With the eraser, all that remains is to delete the lines inside. I finished my first partition. It was a first technique. I'll show you a second one. I simply draw a rectangle which is 37, for example. I'm going to copy it. I turn it 9-sided. I will use these two models to copy them. Move CTRL from that point. I'm going to line up here in the corner. Spacebar, I select the top edge. Move tool, I move along the green axis to here. This way I don't need to type the values of my rectangle. I do the same CTRL. From this point here, we select the right side, move. I'll stop here. I just have to erase the small lines inside. I do this everywhere. I'll show you this model again. CTRL. Here you have to be careful. We're going to try to align ourselves direct with the partition that is here. I stay on track. There I click. I select the top edge and always move it along the green axis on the edge. There you have understood the principle. I'll pause it and come back for the rest. I finished my upper part. I'm going to select the two. I'm going to move them directly a little further down here, for example, in the middle, to be able to make these partitions there, and then I will move them here to finish the rest of my apartment. I'll finish and come back. I just finished my last partition. I delete my two surfaces that I used to model. We will now focus on the technical conduits. I take the rectangle tool. I'm going from there to here. I select with the eraser the three edges and the fourth, which is here, spacebar, F, and I shift. I select the edge that is here. Normally we don't see it very well. I delete it. Same principle here. I do the same for the other conduits and come back. I finished modeling my 4 technical conduits. In the bathroom here, in the toilet, and they're in the kitchen. I can remove the transparency. I push my partitions to the same height here. Double-click afterwards. I mask the walls and the insulation. At the same time, I hide the plan. I select all of that and making a group of them. I put it in partition and technical dots. That way, when I hide them, I no longer see them. I put back the walls and the plan. Now I need to seal the openings above the interior doors. I mask the walls. I keep the map to identify where there are doors. Just one here already. Double-click to open my group, which contains my partitions. I draw a rectangle as usual on the height. This time, however, I type 40. I confirm. Interior doors are always smaller. I push this far, and I realize that I am out of step. Because earlier I didn't align myself properly. It's not serious. I take push-pull, or I push from there to here. I do the same on the other side. I push from the inside to this point. This way I was able to correct my mistakes. I take the eraser and delete the lines here. Same principle, rectangle. 40 and I validate. I push. I'll look for the other doors. There is one here, but I notice that one wall is missing. It's the same case here for access to the toilets. So I make my walls reappear. Rectangle. 40 and I confirm. You see there is a little gap here. At that point I will leave my group. I open walls. I push my wall directly onto my partition. I reopen my partitions and I finish the openings at the top of the doors. There you go. Our modeling is finished as far as the walls and partitions are concerned. We will start importing the models or modeling them ourselves. But first I reset the style to default. I click on Style. Here we will select and click on it directly. We come back with normal SketchUp colors. I said for the furniture, if we model it, we will take a lot of time. I advise you to download them directly and then import them into SketchUp. To download them, there are several free or paid sites. Or we can always go through the 3D Warehouse with 2017. You know that we still have access to it thanks to this tutorial. Here is the sheet here, or as usual, the link in the description. I downloaded them all from the 3D Warehouse. I will take this opportunity to show you the problems that you may encounter when importing files created by other authors. I start by importing the front door. I do file import. Be careful because this time we are still on PNG. SKP must be returned. There I access all my models. It will be up to you to find them on your computer. The entrance door is here. Double click. I'm putting it down, not far from here. I already have the tool move. I take the opportunity to rotate it in the right direction of opening. Who is here? Then I move the midpoint of my door directly. I go transparent on the midpoint of my wall. This way, I am sure to have the door centered. We realize that our door is not wide enough and not high enough. So I select it. I take the scale tool. It's on the keyboard. I push from this handle, the center one, directly on the edge of the wall. I do the same for the height. I click here and directly on the ridge. This is how I was able to resize my front door, still faster than modeling it yourself. I could very well have selected the front door and put it directly in joinery, but I'm not going to bother doing that for every element. We will do it once we have put all the joinery in place. I will now import the interior doors. And we do the same thing. We put it here. Just make a copy. I move it directly wherever I want. I pause and come back. All the interior doors have been installed. The same is being done for the windows. Same principle, we rotate. Move and modify with the scale tool. See you right away. If your window is inside the walls, we switch to transparency. With ladder, you can access the wrist directly. We push until the opening. Same for the height, directly on the edge. I just installed the last window. All the carpentry is finished. So far, we have not encountered any problems. On the other hand, we will see that from the sink onwards there start to be some problem. Before importing the sanitary facilities, we will put everything that is carpentry in the carpentry layer. I hide wall, plan, and partitions. I select them and put them directly in joinery. I don't need to create a group because they are already groups. We will now see the problem of the sink. I import it. When I put it down, we see that the group is very large. That's not good news. There are certainly parasitic traits. To see them, we make a hidden geometry display. In fact, there are still lots of little pieces left. I open the group. I select what I want to keep. Shift key pressed. I select everything. It reverses the selection. I have a little tutorial on this subject. If you are interested on the selection modes, I delete all that left is the sink. This is definitely the kind of error you are likely to encounter most of the time. All that remains is to move the furniture. We move well in relation to the foot. We're going to put it directly on the ground here. The width looks pretty good. On the other hand, I'm not glued to the wall, so I select the corner of the furniture. I block along the green direction with the left arrow on the keyboard. I stand here against the wall. My furniture, on the other hand, is not deep enough. I'm removing the hidden geometry for now. Double-click. I select the piece of furniture, I take scale, and I enlarge it. We can see that this room has been distorted. Double-click until I can select the group. Scale and resize. I take the central handle. With CTRL, I push here to give it a circular shape. I open the group below. I select this part. I deselect my small group. I take scale. I place myself on the central handle, CTRL. I resize to give it a cylindrical shape. It's not an obligation, but it's just interesting to do it. We will now see the second problem. It's at bed level. I'm going to import it here. We see that it is already quite far from my mouse. It's already a small problem. I open the group. We see that the origin is not placed at bed level. It's already a problem. It's not that serious yet. On the other hand, if I go into the components, I hide the styles. I go into the model, we see this little logo here as a dynamic component, which means that if I take the scale tool and want to resize it, that causes problems. To avoid this, I will explode the component. I select everything again. And bursting. I select everything until there are no more groups. There are still some. We are bursting. This time, there is nothing more. I select the set and create a group. My bed has been modified. I can move it as I want. Resize it with the scale tool. This time, there is no more problem. I pause the video and come back when I have finished setting up all the furniture. So I just finished the redevelopment. I added a desk with a computer and 3 screens. Here, a shower cabin. Here, I integrated a kitchen. The tutorial will stop there for today. Regarding cooking, I will do a new tutorial because it is oft requested. Let me know in the comments if you'd be interested. I will be able to make one. Remember to subscribe and activate the bell to be notified as soon as it is released. The terrace, nothing special apart from the transparency. Thank you and see you soon for the next tutorial for cooking, no doubt.